Welcome to the podcast, Trying to Get Jacked podcast.
What's
Come
going
on,
on, guys?
guys.
What's
What's
up,
up?
You
guys? So
got
we got some, we got some jacked guests. So Coach KARTAR and DASHA. DASHA, she already came last time, and she was probably one of the most watched stuff in nutrition, right?
Really?
Um, yeah, good nutrition. Everyone wants to like shit nicely, you know. So I think that's why
Yeah,
everyone
no.
watched.
I think I saw the last podcast that we did was like 92 views. I was like, oh damn, it's one of the
Yeah,
higher
like
ones. Oh.
yeah, like hour 30-minute podcast on YouTube. That's a pretty good thing. Yeah, 90. But yeah, we'll slowly keep going up. Um, but yeah, before we start, I want to kind of go into Coach Kartar's background. I'll just give a little intro too on my end. So I got into training probably in like 2020ish full time. But then before that, I think we met like 2018, 2017, always at Good Life, things like that. I used to see you and Raja, right? Just killing at Good Life, fucking jacked, just benching all the time, and just fucking strong as fuck. And I think you used to be at Good Life before, and you were probably the first guys I asked for like training advice and things like that, and even getting into training. So obviously, there's a good amount of experience in this head of yours. So we want to kind of dig into that today. But before we do that, yo, give us a little intro, bro. Like how long you've been personal training for, but also like how long you've been bodybuilding for, because your physique's gone from like crazy. And we can dive in the later end of the podcast, but like you used to be vegetarian and then you became non-veg. And that
Yeah.
obviously made you get jacked because vegetarians is like you can't, right? Um, maybe I don't know, we'll find out. But yeah, yo, give us a give us a little intro, bro. What's good? What's popping?
So what's up, guys? My name is Coach Kartar. I've been training myself for around 15 years or so. So I'm 30 now. I started around when I was like 15, 16. I've been personal training from around like 2015, but even before that, I was always in the gym, kind of like interested in learning about strength and conditioning and how to get bigger and how to gain muscle, all because I knew I was kind of at a disadvantage being a skinnier kid. So I had to kind of gain some knowledge, and that knowledge easily spread amongst my friends, where people were like, wow, you're pretty good at like teaching us how to do this and do that. And so squats, deadlifts, bench, those were like my staples, because I did have like a little bit of a sports background as well. I did a little bit of wrestling, I did a little bit of football. Never really went far with them, but it did give me like a kind of a base to have sort of a strength and conditioning background. Although it's not something I've done formally in school, it's something I've studied for close to around 15 years now, ever since I started. And even a little bit before that in high school, I took a pretty good interest in it while I was in football and wrestling and all that stuff. So going forward 15 years now, me and my wife Dasha, we own a online coaching business. We also still do personal training. All in all, 15 years of coaching. My own endeavors have included things like powerlifting and bodybuilding. Right, so I haven't done anything seriously competitive yet. So that's something that we might look at in the future. But for now, this is where I'm at and who I am.
Fire, yeah. So yo, give me a little sauce on why you took interest. And obviously you played sports and growing up. Because I remember this was like back in, I don't know, 2020 in the garage. I was asking this to him, like, how'd you learn all this anatomy and all this stuff, right? Like I can't put my head down and be like, I'm gonna learn about anatomy. And I put it down for like a week straight, and like my brain just gets fried. I'm like, oh, this is so hard, right? So when did you, because I remember you telling me in like grade 8 or some shit, or grade 9, you're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna read it anatomy book and I'm just gonna go through it
Yeah.
just for fun, right? Like, how did that start?
So I mean, growing up, I had weird interests. Let's put it that way, right? Just in
Okay.
terms of like where I grew up in the world and like what I had access to and like what was around me, what my family, parents, uncles, whatever did. A lot of mechanical stuff, a lot of like engineering, a lot of mining type like weird shit. So in my growing up in my head, I was always kind of putting things together, figuring out how things work as a child, right? My dad introduced me to like mechano sets and like Lego build fucking little motors and shit with little cars, or like I tried to build a helicopter one time, a little mini helicopter. So the aspect of like wanting to figure how things work has always kind of been there. And I always kind of talk about like, I could have gone into engineering or like something like that, right? So like it's something I just naturally took an interest to, because things like sadly, like, cartoons and like shit like that when I was growing up didn't really like interest me that much, because I'd look at other kids like, what the fuck are you guys watching cartoons?
Yeah.
It was weird. Like I had a very mature like mindset as a kid. So when it came down to, okay, sports, I was like, yo, how can I gain the smallest little advantage learning how can I improve? And then I started learning, well, there's a technique to this. Well, there's a this to this. There's a finesse basically. So everything I did in my life, and this is where I always say how you do one thing is how you do everything. I found a finesse. I found a way to have a sort of a finesse with everything. And that's where I took an interest in, okay, sports, meaning I need to get bigger, meaning I need to learn how to train better in the gym, and how do you use this weight and this machine? How is it built? So that kind of all came together to my interest, where my dad had, I think, a membership at like Bally's or something. And like he was like showing me what he was doing in the gym. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And like saw his belly go down a little bit, and like he cleaned up his diet a little bit. I was like, oh, it's cool. And at the same time, my aunt was diagnosed with diabetes. So that scared the shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie. And like grade 6, I stopped drinking all pop soda. Very, very healthy, because I was very scared I would also become diabetic, because I ate very similar to how my aunt ate. Me as a child, her as an adult, led to her becoming diabetic. So, I kind of saw, and look, she kind of exaggerated, being like, yo, she's gonna fucking die from this like right away. So I didn't know what diabetes was. So I started to take like health a little bit more seriously. I think that was the trigger that catapulted me into that like fitness realm, apart from just caring about how to get better at sports. Right. So for a good while, I was just very health conscious. Also saw people in my family have like certain health issues. My dad had some certain, like, he didn't have any serious health issues, but he was a big glutton. Like, you watch like wrestling and stuff, you're like, hey, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
So you kind of mold yourself through your environment, through watching other people, and just kind of experiencing life as a kid, living in a certain way, to be like, yo, that's how I want to be. That's the interest I want to take.
Yeah. Now, usually I know for a fact, and I have this conversation all the time. It's like when you see that, like your aunt have diabetes or your dad has like a little bit of a gut, whatever it is, we end up following that path too. Like a lot of people have that option, right? It's like go the opposite. But the fact that you took the opposite direction when you're whatever sixth grade, right? Like a lot of people don't do that because they're like, oh, it's fine. I'm young. I'm just gonna expand, right? That's how it works. So it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you took the opposite from such a young age, right? A lot of people. I didn't do that. I didn't do that until like, fuck, I don't even know, bro. Until like 18, 19, right?
Mhm.
And I don't even know why I did it actually. I was just like, I don't talk to people, so I had to socialize. So I started going to the gym, and then started going to Burger King after. Then I was like, yo, this is not working. So I stopped going to Burger King. I'm like, oh, it's working now. But nah, it's sick. Okay, so obviously you've been in the game for a minute. One thing you did mention was also came from more of a skinnier side, right?
Mhm.
Which is cool because a lot of fitness journeys kind of start from being overweight, right? They go in this obese place and then they want to lose or get shredded. They want to look better in that sense. From just a quick note, we won't touch too much on this, right? But coming from a skinnier mindset, if that's a thing, right? What was your approach? Be like, because a lot of people are like they're hard gainers, right? It's like, oh my God, bro, like I just can't gain weight. I've been trying for like 19 years, whatever it is. I just can't gain weight, right? So how did you start to get bigger, obviously?
So a big part of it was my
Yeah.
chacha. So
Oh,
my
sick.
uncle, my dad's brother,
Yeah.
or sorry, my dad's cousin actually. Yo, he
Yeah.
always used to like kind of push me to like, yo, you need to eat more. You need to eat more. You're too skinny. You need to eat more.
Okay.
So that, yo, bro, like for like 10 years, he did that. I was like
Sick.
5, 6 years old. He's
Yeah.
like, you're too skinny. You need to gain weight. You need to get big and strong. So I already knew that in order to get bigger, I needed to eat more. So when it came time to me actually hitting the gym, it's like it was already in my head, like, bro, you need to fucking eat,
Yeah.
right? But that was obviously I knew that, but it wasn't as easy as just like putting food down my mouth, swallowing and chewing it. It
Yeah.
was much harder than that because I was a picky eater, and then
Yeah.
also having less access to like food, being vegetarian, less food options. It was like there wasn't much for me to pick from at the time.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I relied a lot on like shakes and stuff in the beginning.
Okay. So yo, this is a good segue. So into the supplement game. But we might go opposite route here. So since you already mentioned you were vegetarian, right? And you relied a lot on shakes. And shake is technically a supplement if you think about it. So this is a gateway into the supplement conversation. Um, so as a vegetarian, do you think it was more important for you to supplement the extra protein? Or like, or the means we can probably go backwards here, but let's start
Yeah.
with the protein supplementation. You think that was more important, or it was more like a knowledge gap? And you have more knowledge now, obviously, and we have Dasha's knowledge as well, right? So if you have, based on that knowledge compared to now, would you still do all those shakes to get your protein intake as a vegetarian?
Um, it wouldn't reduce that much with the knowledge we have now.
Okay.
Like in terms of, I was doing maybe what, like 2, 3 scoops a day. So like a scoop and a half, 2 shakes a day.
Okay.
Um, it wouldn't be much different now. The other food sources, yeah, right?
Okay.
Other like structure of like the rest of your diet, sure, but like I still think as a vegetarian, if you're gonna go down the specifically bodybuilding route of like you need to achieve a physique, there needs to be that necessary supplementation. Otherwise, if you look at the choices of food that you have, taking in consideration diversity is important. It is not possible, and I have, trust me, for like 10 years, bro. I tried, and you saw all my Excel files. I have done the combinations. You will not get a diverse enough nutrient profile from the food selection you have as a vegetarian to complete amino acid profiles
Yeah,
and have good digestion and have diversity
and eat in a proper
and
deficit.
eat like all the proper macronutrient ratios. All those cannot be checked off at the same time. So and let's stop there
Okay.
before I keep
Okay.
going.
No, it was good. Kegs.
What's the closest you think you can get as a vegetarian to be able to like you said, tick all the boxes? Like what foods would you recommend? Say someone's watching this, they're like, yo, I'm a vegetarian. They're trying to check all the boxes. Obviously, it may not be possible. What's the closest they can get? Like, what would you recommend?
Let's say there's like 5 boxes to check. You probably check like 2 to 3 of them consistently. For like a regular lifestyle, like you don't have to be like super robotic about your food.
Okay, so how would so I'm guessing we can, I don't know if you want to break down the boxes, but let's just go with the diet route, right? Um you said the structure of the diet would be different compared to what it was back then, right? Compared to now. So how would you
Yeah.
structure like a vegetarian bodybuilder who's trying to achieve a physique, right? Their diet. And again, everyone's different. Individuality is going to be a big thing. We get it. Digestion, and some people may be like, if you want to call it hyper responders, they may get jacked faster, right? Even with like not sufficient protein profiles, all that stuff. Taking that into consideration, what would be like a structure of like a diet? Like what foods would you majorly change? What you were doing before, you were like, I definitely would not do this now, that kind of stuff.
So one of the biggest things was because I was trying to look for vegetarian high protein sources.
Okay.
Everything that you're gonna see, like you said, you started going to the gym and then you started going to Burger King afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, Burger King has a veggie burger. Guess what? When I started going to LA Fitness,
Yeah.
and this is why I said like that little health phase of fitness lasted a while, because when I wanted to actually put on size, like, oh shit, I need to eat.
Yeah.
Okay, what food do I have available to me? Okay, it's all this processed soy, veggie burger, whatever stuff. You double down on the veggie patty. You get the extra slice of cheese, which is processed cheese.
Okay.
You're going to Burrito Boys. You're getting the soy. You're getting all the food you're getting from the grocery store. High protein, vegetarian.
Meat
It's
stuff. Yeah.
all processed,
Okay.
all of it. So like that's what I was doing in the beginning. And so if I was to recommend somebody who wants to do it now, I would say, hey, maybe you should avoid the processed stuff. Don't worry about getting your high protein, high whatever
Veggie
shit,
patty.
veggie
Yeah.
patty.
Yeah.
Eat your regular, like I would recommend people just to eat dal that doesn't have a lot of torque on it. Cook it properly, right? There are better sources of protein that you can get that are not highly processed. Things like the pressed cottage cheese.
Yeah, so you can go. I personally would say you can go the dairy route, right? You can use different types of dairy products. Clearly, right, there's a bunch available, like the pressed cottage cheese versus like the liquidy one we talked about last time, right? That has all the chunks in it. You can get higher Greek yogurts that have full complete amino acid profiles. You can go the route of like tofu. Again, sparingly, right? Making sure that your tofu sources are properly sourced, that they're not like the cheaper, like $5 tofus. Get like the organic tofu that's like not refined, right? So basically selecting, like we talked about last time on the podcast, whole food options, right? So if there's a dish that you like that's vegetarian, especially like in your guys' culture, you can reverse engineer that dish to make it less fatty, less sodium based, right? You can make it healthy. You can do your complete amino acid pairing so that you get your lysine, your methionine, you can get all those other amino acids that are missing from each food group. Learn how to protein combine, right? So you can make like bread and peanut butter together to make a complete profile, right? You don't have to like eat necessarily unhealthy versions of the vegetarian foods. So we're currently with our clients that are vegetarian, we're teaching them how to select individual ingredients and come up with the recipes that they can kind of sort of make shift and keep consistent. Because the number one thing with a vegetarian diet is that there has to be a consistency in food selection in order for there to be a complete sufficiency of vitamins and minerals and a complete protein intake, especially if we're looking at adding muscle mass, right?
Okay.
So good quality dairy, good quality wholesome ingredients to make your own dishes, right? And then if you get lucky and you find like at the grocery store that there is like, okay, like a veggie concoction of like, there's only just beans, lentils, chia, whatever, and the macros look relatively good. Obviously, they're going to be on the higher carb end, but there's going to be some good healthy fats, some good amount of protein in there. You can add that in, right? So look for like some snacks that are, again, simplified ingredients, whole food sources. So it's doable, but in my opinion and from my like knowledge base, you will not get the aesthetic that a meat eater would. And it's just plain facts, right? Because unless you are a body type, and again, without going into too much detail, if you're one of those individuals that does exceptionally well on high carb diets, you'll probably get really lean, right? Pair that with the correct exercise format, with the correct cardiovascular exercise, sure, you'll get someone shredded, but you're gonna have to work 10 times harder and it might not guarantee you the results versus somebody who can just do a low carb diet when they're cutting for a show, for example. Simple, you eat your chicken, you eat your eggs, you eat your steak, you're fine. You can control how much rice goes in and out because your chicken and rice are not, they're mutually exclusive. They can exist without each other, right? So long answer short is, in my opinion, a vegetarian diet is good for endurance sports where you do need a high amount of carbohydrates. But in terms of for bodybuilding, there's a reason why not a lot of people are vegetarian, right? It's not something that's very practical to do. Not that it's impossible, but you're just not going to be, being extremely realistic, you're not going to reach a certain level. I'm sure there's obviously that one anomaly that does make it. And again, that's like we were talking about an individual case, scenario. But for the majority of individuals, like clientele that will inquire with you and I and us, like we have to be extremely realistic to tell them that like your goal of like looking a certain way may not happen because this diet just simply doesn't allow for it, right? It's like somebody keto and being like, well, I want to be able to eventually, like, I want to eat my donuts and still be keto. You can't. You can't do that. It doesn't work, right? You can make keto donuts, but you cannot have a real donut and be keto. It's just the same thing. You can't be a pure ass vegetarian and expect to be like shredded, right? It does not work. You can be lean, but you won't be stage ready, in my opinion. So
I think the caveat to all of this also is like we're being specific with like someone trying to get on the stage and trying to win per se, right? Like a physique that's, we're not saying like you can't be like 10th place, right? Sure.
No, for sure. You can
right?
come in looking good. Like
you can look pretty good.
For sure.
Right.
It's
so like
lifestyle, I think.
So like people, because a lot of people, even because of the fact that we mentioned all this, people can still get really good physiques. And KARTAR, your physique was fucking sick. And even like when you got really strong, that was vegetarian diet. But if you're trying to take it to that next level, or even trying to like just not put effort into it, we're not gonna get to where we want to get to. Because a lot of people like we mentioned processed foods quite a bit, right? Because there's a lot of veggie options. Like I think there's what's that fake meat, right? There's a bunch of fake Beyond Meat, all those things, right? Actually, let's touch on that. So when we say processed, what do you mean by like processed food? I don't know kind of what it means, but if you guys want to dumb it down.
let me reiterate on the process, meaning ultra processed.
Okay. Okay.
Processing is like, yo, you're just packaging an apple, like putting it in
Yeah.
a bag, like processing, right?
Yeah.
Ultra processing is like putting multiple unnatural ingredients together to create a product that you would not find in nature.
I got you.
Yeah.
Sort of kind of
basically creating something with fillers, like
Yeah.
emulsifiers, preservatives, just to sustain shelf quantity or freshness or texture, right?
Okay.
So for example, let's use the burger patty. If you look at a beef burger, there's just what, beef, some like salt, pepper, whatever, like if you find a really good quality burger. And you look at a Beyond Meat patty and there's like literally 10 ingredients, and half of those ingredients are starches, wheat brands of some sorts,
There's way more
Packers.
than 10 ingredients.
Yeah, there's, I don't know if the ingredient, I honestly haven't looked at a list like that for a long time, so I'm sure they've gone up. But you
Yeah.
have your artificial smoke flavoring, artificial this, artificial that. It's like those things, they're meant to mimic a specific palate so the person finds the food enjoyable. Meaning that if you didn't put all that other stuff in there, you probably wouldn't eat it. So if that's the case, why are you eating it then, right? Like, why is that even an option for food? That's not food then at that point.
You know, it's very similar to like lab grown meat.
Yeah.
That's like a thing now people are trying, right? So,
or bugs even.
It's like the vegetarian stuff that you buy now in the grocery stores and at the fast food, it's all supposed to look and taste like meat, right? That in itself, like when I started doing it at home, my parents were like, yo, this is weird. Like, why are you eating something that looks, tastes, and smells like meat, but it's not meat?
Yeah.
It's just a weird concept to even just, be like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna eat. Yeah. Right. But for the sake of, wanting to fit into societal standards, when you go out, your boys are having a burger, you want to have a burger too, cool. It looks, smells, and tastes the same as what they're eating, but it's not beef.
Yeah.
Right. So part of the issue is people just wanting to like fit in and want the same thing everyone else is eating. And they want to feel the same, experience the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So part of the thing about the whole processing thing is like, what are we really trying to process? Are we trying to process you to think that you're part of something that you're not? Right. So to me, what the processing actually is more of a fucking mind fuck to you. You're getting fucked by all the ultra processing of this thing that is making you think it's something it's not. Right. So that's where the real danger in ultra processed foods really come. Look at the Lay's chips. They have all these colorful yellow and red, McDonald's yellow and red, ultra processed foods that smell really good. They get you addicted to it so that you keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
Right. And what are you really coming back to? You're coming back to the smell, taste of meat. But you're not really eating it. So, I mean, it's a weird fucking thing to me. And when I really took that in as a vegetarian, I stopped. I was like, yo, this is like some, if you've read like books like 1984 by Orwell, George Orwell, man, this will really kind of open your eyes as to what this whole fake meat thing is really about. I think Ronan, you'll really find some insights to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for the ultra processed stuff is really supposed to mimic something that it's not.
That's
outside of like a cultural thing, from a biological perspective, or like what it's actually doing to your body. Can you guys touch on like why something like super ultra processed, like how would that person feel? How would it affect what they're doing? How would that affect them building muscle, energy levels, et cetera, et cetera? Could you guys touch on that?
Yeah, for sure. So again, you got to look at the fact of like our bodies are very smart, right? So we have a specific like enzymatic structure, a specific biological like structure to absorb certain macronutrients, to certain micronutrients, stuff like that, right? So when we're putting in, let's think of a car analogy. And again, I know a lot of people aren't fans of using car analogies for the human body, but it's the closest thing that we can use to kind of sort of like be relative to, right? Let's say you drive a BMW, right? A very expensive car, or Ferrari. Right. So let's say our bodies are like our Ferraris, because at the end of the day, they really are. They're very complex machines. They're very intricately designed. It's a very, very like high class piece of like machinery, right? Your car takes ultra premium gas. So it's like the really high end one, right? And you're like, cool, this is great, but I want to put in the shitty 87 gas because it's cheaper. It's still gas. It's still going to get me from point A to point B, but it's just cheaper. I'm sure you could do that to your engine for a while. Like the Ferrari will probably start like glitching and coughing and start, acting weird on the road, but you'll probably get a couple of maybe 50, 60 kilometers out of that. And then the car will start to break down. You bring it to a mechanic, and the mechanic's like, well, what the hell's wrong with your car? And you're like, I don't know. I just put gas in it and it stops driving. And then the mechanic asks you, what kind of gas did you put in? And he's like, oh, I put in like 87, like the cheapest one, 85, whatever was available at the time. And your mechanic's going to look at you. It's going to look at the inside of the engine where all the oil's like clogged, it's dirty, there's carbon buildup. You're like, that's your problem. Now take that analogy, apply it to the human body. You're putting in stuff that's low quality, that's cheaper, that's like basically these foods are made for mass production. That means there's shortcuts taken, right? They're quickly made, quick, fill it out, get it out. You need protein here. Here's a protein supplement or a protein food that's got, like 10 grams of protein. Instead of just taking the time to eat the egg that you can buy at the grocery store, you decided to buy a protein bar that has like this, all these ingredients in there, but it's protein. Don't worry, just eat it. You're fine. Go. Yeah. Convenience, right? So convenience, affordability is a much easier route to take for people, but the repercussions of it on the body, it's compounding, right? So although it's okay to do it for like maybe a short period of time, you'll still get your 50, 60 kilometers out of your car. Eventually, when you go to the doctor and you're like, what the fuck's wrong with me? He's gonna be like, well, you got high blood pressure, you got high cholesterol, you're pre-diabetic, your lungs are, your heart's, you're gonna probably need a bypass surgery. And you're wondering, well, I've been eating, like I'm fine, like I've been eating food, I'm okay, like what's going on? That's the analogy that processed foods will do to your body. It may not do anything right away, but the compounding effect will start to slowly creep in the body when you're putting something in that doesn't belong, right? You're putting in things that are made in a laboratory. Although, again, there's so many scientists out there like, this is totally safe. We've done studies for sure. But let's do those studies for 30, 40, 50 years and let's see if you're going to get the same result. There has yet been a study to show that people who eat whole foods are going to die like prematurely, right? Or have higher risks of cholesterol. Or if you eat like green apples that are organically grown, you're going to die in 10 years. No, because that shit doesn't exist. Because why? These foods will not do that to you. Right now, going into the quantity of the foods is a whole nother issue. But if we're just looking at the whole foods versus processed foods perspective, that's literally what will happen to your body over the decades that you lived, is that the processed foods will catch up to you and you will have a not so healthy life anymore, to say, right? So if you think of it like that, that's basically what's happening.
So is there like a little bit of a dosage amount? Like does that quantity matters? Maybe you can have a little bit every day, like a little bit of fake chicken. No?
A little bit of poison every day, you'll become immune to it, right? So and again, if you actually look at what homeopathy is, the study of homeopathy is they use poisons, right? And like certain homeopathic preparations, they use micro poisons to poison the body into being well. So yes, you could definitely take small doses. Like you're not going to die if you eat like a couple of chips a day, right?
Yeah.
But again, if it comes down to the perspective of, well, I have like this tit and it's not going down, why is it this, like visceral fat area? Well, maybe those little chip bites you took every single day for 365 days of the year are something to do with it, right? So again, there is bliss in moderation, but also that moderation needs to be moderate, right? Just like drinking alcohol, you can have a drink every now and then, it won't kill you, but of course you'll be better off without it, right? Of course your liver will be happier without it. Of course your insulin levels will be better without eating like a donut after every workout. I'm sure like there's such a big scale of variance when it comes to this that if you can just avoid this stuff, avoid it, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't need it. And that's when it comes down to a factor of your wants versus your needs. And that's a mind discipline thing, right? Do I need to eat chips? No, I fucking don't. I can just go eat a potato, right? I can put some salt in a potato in an air fryer. It's the same shit. No, it's just easier for me to eat chips because they're in this crunchy bag. They smell really good. And they have a bunch of things in there that's going to, like Carter said, it's going to make me addicted to it, right? So it becomes a thing of psychology. Is like, yes, the average person, the average population, the average client we deal with, oh, can I have a little bit of this? Go for it. You're not going to die. Of course not. But if we're really looking at, again, the grand scheme of things, the grand scheme of like health, just don't eat that shit and you're going to be fine. Like you're not going to die from not eating ice cream. It's as simple as that. So it comes down to an individual thing, I think, personally.
So okay, I'm going to try playing a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Sure.
And so there's gonna be people, you know, and I'll be that people. I'll be Bunty for today, right?
Sure.
But it has been I've been consistent with my veggie chicken, and I've been having it every night, and I've been getting jacked still. My lifts are progressing, physique's progressing, everything is great. Um, I don't feel like the ultra processed stuff is like affecting me in any bad ways that like, you know, you mentioned. So like, how would I know if it's affecting me or not? Like, what would be the signs for that? Because I feel pretty jacked.
Again, this is where it comes down to that concept we were just talking about of the compounding effect, right?
Okay.
This individual is in their early 20s. You're again, if you have the metabolism of a teenager up to a certain age, right? Then we're gonna start looking at metabolic type. You can, again, we talked about this even in the last podcast when I was telling you guys about my bodybuilding show. You said it yourself. You probably looked like the healthiest person,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
on
yeah.
the inside, you were like, stop this now, right?
Mm.
So somebody might feel healthy and look healthy, but if they were to look at their insides and what's going on with their bodies, the blood work, I'm pretty sure some stool samples, some swabs in the mouth would prove otherwise, right? And if this individual in particular is like avoiding these things just because they're going based off of how they feel, this is how people drop dead in their 40s. Onset heart attack, he didn't see it coming, or she didn't see it coming. Stroke in 25, 35, they didn't see it coming because they just chose to be ignorant to that aspect of health, right?
Yeah.
And again, you might be fine to a certain point. Everybody has a biological clock. Everyone's telomeres are getting shorter and shorter and shorter as you live on. You can lengthen those telomeres by being healthy and making good choices, or you can just completely start erasing them and shortening your lifespan by choosing to be ignorant and eating and being, oh, I'm fine, until one day you're not. So it's not to say that like these people aren't okay. I'm sure they are, because again, we talked about last time, how you feel is a really big perspective and a really big aspect of health. But eventually these things do catch up to people. Whether they want to admit it or not, there will come a day where their body is just like, F you, I'm going to stop now and you're going to have to go on medication. It happens to literally almost every single individual who's had this mindset, right? Unless you're like our grandparents' age and you grew up in an era where these foods were not as processed and as like modified and as mass produced as they are now, you might be okay, because majority of your lifespan you eat in a certain way and you've gotten to a certain age and you're fine. And now you're in this era where all these foods exist and you're now being exposed to them. You're most likely going to have enough life left in you to kind of get by, and then your time on earth is done and you die. But if we're talking about relatively young individuals who are feeling okay right now, you could be potentially hindering your like life quality in your 40s and 50s, right? Because that's the clientele that I mainly work with. They're in their 40s and 50s and they come to me, they're like, oh my God, in my 30s and my 20s, I did this, I was fine. Now I'm 40, I can't even take like 2 steps without gasping for air, or I'm chasing my dog up the stairs and I can't breathe. I'm like, well, let's just take a look at all the things you did in your past that have compounded now, right? So again, it's a very like, just keep an eye on it type of thing. But one day it comes and it's just like, you're like, well, I didn't see it coming. Well, yes, you did. You just chose to be ignorant to it, right? It's everywhere in your face telling you, be careful, and you're just like, nah, I'm fine. So
When it comes down to feeling too, like I'm sure like we've all had clients where like oh I feel okay, and then you make the changes to their diet and they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. It's like
now, yes,
they don't realize what feeling good or feeling super
that's,
dialed in feels like, especially if
yes,
they've been doing that for their entire life. They've just been eating the processed junk. It's like then when they switch to it, it's like, oh shit, this is what I was missing out on, or this is how I'm supposed to feel. And that's when it
yes,
sort of starts to click for people. But yeah, if
yep.
someone's in that rut where they're just always eating that shit, or they're just always in the same environment, they're not gonna know what's out there that's
No.
better,
And
right?
then
So,
that's an excellent point, yeah, because again, you don't really know what shitty feels like until you feel better,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We had this joke in my culture in Russia. It's like this guy, he went to the doctor, right? And he's just like, oh my gosh, like, like I feel like this and that and this and that. And the doctor's like, okay. He's like, he did something that made him feel worse. So then the guy's like, oh my gosh, he comes back to the doctor. He's like, oh my God, I feel worse. The doctor's like, okay, I'll just do this and this. He goes back to feeling how he used to feel. He's like, oh, okay, so this feels good, that feels worse. He didn't know how shitty something can feel until that current state got worse and he went back. So it's like, how do you make somebody feel better? First, you make them feel worse, and then you bring them back to how they used to feel, and all of a sudden they feel better, right? Same thing can be said is, how do you make someone know that they felt like shit? Make them feel better, and then remind them of what they used to feel like. Then they're like, oh no, that's bad. No, this is good, right? So it's the same thing. It's like it's a perspective thing the person has to. I think the person just has to go through it to understand, right? So until they feel better or worse, they're gonna be like, I'm fine, I'm just cruising, right? Like we even had the example with him, like when like me and him started to like, you know, like live together and like we got married and stuff, and I started to look at his diet, and then he like himself realized, he's like, oh my gosh, he's like, I didn't like realize that all these things are this bad. Like his perspective on food and just nutrition overall, I think changed so much just by like not necessarily being exposed to something else, but just being like shown like, hey, like if you don't do this, you'll feel like this, or if you add this in and take this out, this is how it'll affect your performance, right? Or this is how it'll affect your physique. Or instead of eating these potatoes that are prepackaged frozen, let's just cut up our own potatoes, season them, freeze them, and then cook them. Same thing, same frozen potato, but one has starch, MSG, all this other stuff, and then the other one's homemade, where it's just potatoes, salt, pepper, oil. And it's like the difference in overall functionality, cognitive effect. It's like the person doesn't realize it until they experience it themselves, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think what's that just because you know something in your mind and like you don't take action on it, then that's being ignorant, right? Because like these things, I know a lot of people say this all the time, right? So yo, bro, just have like the fruits, veggies, all these things from grocery stores. We know the quality of it is not the up to par per se, but it's a good starting point for people, and then they can eventually get into better quality stuff, right? Which is fine. But then people are still gonna be like, if I can be consistent with something and I'm feeling okay, I'm gonna keep doing it. But then that's where ignorance comes in, because you know for a fact it is compounding. A lot of people know back of their mind there's certain things they're doing on a day-to-day basis that they're not supposed to be doing, right? But they're like, I feel good right now, right? So how would you go on about explaining to like your clients? Because I know people who become a client, they already have this wake-up call of like, yo, I gotta change some shit, right? That's why they're here. So how would you go on about like transitioning their mind out of like a place of I feel pretty decent, right? So I don't know if I need to change all these foods or like, because it's extra work, right? Cutting your own potatoes, freezing them, and then putting in like, how do you tell somebody, like, you're putting this extra effort to make your meals, buy organic, spend that little extra money, buy organic tofu instead of the, whatever stuff, buy maybe pressed cottage cheese. Like, how would you go on about like the mindset? Because that sounds like that's pretty much the big pillar that you need to get
It is, yeah.
across somebody, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yo, this is something that gets done over time.
Yeah.
You have to first build some sort of rapport with your client, get to know what type of person they are,
Yeah.
right? To know like what really is getting them to tick. Ask them questions as to why they're doing what they're doing. Once you really find out why they've hired you as a coach, like you really find out, like this will take you probably like 2-3 months.
Yeah, a good amount of time.
Like it will take you time, right? But this is like having the hard conversations. There'll probably be somebody crying on one end of the fucking line, either you or your client, but most likely the client, right? Because they're the ones going to have to open up to you and tell you what is going on and what they really, really came to you for. Once you have that, you can now take that and kind of remind them, use it as a reminder. Hey, you told me that you came to me because of this issue, right? You know that what you're doing right now is okay, but you know what, adding this small thing will get you even closer to that. And when you keep reminding of that thing, look, this thing is going to make them very emotional. They're going to have some sort of like attachment to it. You are not going to be the one driving them towards making these choices. You are going to set that goal as an emotional thing to pull them towards it, right? So it has to be done very strategically with you knowing how to talk to your client on a, I guess, per client basis. Males, females, different backgrounds, whatever, different approaches. People have fucking traumas and shit too. So like you have to kind of address that. But once you really find out, okay, this is what you want, let's get you this. Do you trust me? I'm your coach. This is why you hired me. I have my hand out, take my hand, let's go. Right. So it should be a very smooth process from there with like little resistance, because your client should trust you. Your client should put faith in you, and you should know them enough to know how to lead the path to get them to incorporate these things, right? And you're gonna have to talk to them about like real shit, like, yo, why are you eating this processed shit? For example, I will just throw this out there because you have a lot of Punjabi clients. There's the whole farmers protest going on, or was going on in India, right? A lot of people are against that. You have to make them understand, what are you really against? Which companies are you really against that are doing that? Oh, it's the same companies that you're fucking eating food from over here. Do you really want to support that? You fucking moron. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you really supporting? Right? You get to the fucking pinpoints of like what, you're supporting that, but look what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Right? If they open their eyes, if they're not retarded, obviously they won't be, contradicting themselves. They'll make the decision themselves to stop.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about empowering people, making sure they're knowing what type of choices they're really making.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to like educate them
That's a
of
big one.
the political things behind what they're doing, because everybody has a political stance. And if you really get to know your client and you get to know what kind of stance they have, you can kind of dive into that and go that route. And there's a lot of politics involved with food. Almost all of it is fucking politics.
Part of the education concept is teaching, like, again, with our clients on our end, is like they have a specific way of shopping, or they have a specific choice of food they make, or a brand that they're really attached to, right? If there's no emotional food relationship happening, and it's just strictly like, well, because like I like this, so I like this. If it's a brand or a company or something that is known for harming people or has a lot of like litigation behind it, you educate them as to why that's not the best choice for them, right? Make them understand the importance of like, hey, like, look, selecting these cheaper brands means you're supporting this and this. If that doesn't matter to you, okay, these cheaper brands use this and this ingredient. You know that this and this ingredient is led to blah, 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 blah. It's not fear mongering. It's just making them aware of like, you can buy this, but this is what it's going to do to you. Is this what you really want? And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, the person's like, oh, I didn't know that. So it's never usually like, well, it is what it is, and I'm going to buy what I buy, and you can't tell. No, it's usually like, oh, like, I didn't know that that was a thing. Like, we had one client who came to us from like a different, like completely different sport, and she was eating certain things, buying certain foods because the previous coach was like, well, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. It's going to get you your macros. But then I'm like, well, hang on, like, you have a bloating problem. You're eating all this shit. This is why you're bloated. You're not bloated just because you're overweight. No, you're not. That's like, overweight is one thing, but you bloating is an intestinal thing. What are you eating? Sends me of what she's eating. I'm like, all this stuff in here has been directly linked to people being bloated. This is cheap quality proteins in those bars. This is a shitty quality like filler that you're using in your food. These creamers that you're putting in your coffee, it's not even cream. It's like cornstarch. This is why you have all these potential problems, why you have skin issues. Once this person was educated on this and she made the change, just like Hag said, she didn't understand what feeling good was until she made that change. Then she's like, I do not want to feel like that again. Oh my gosh, no. And then it's like they want to learn more. And then like, well, what does this do? And then they'll start sending you like little articles like, what do you think of this study? Or what do you think of this product? Or what do you think of this food? And that's how you know you got them, because now your client is engaging, your client wants to learn, and they're genuinely wanting to better themselves, and they're willing to do whatever it takes at this point. Right. So it's a mindset thing, like he was saying, it's a very big mindset thing. And then it's leading the horse to the water. Right. That's the biggest concept I think that we've found is the hurdle of nutrition barriers with people and our clients, is just leading them to the water and getting them to drink, but on their own will. Right. So you can teach them, you can show them, but initially they have to understand why they're doing it and want to do it.
There's also a sense of superiority that comes with knowing shit other people don't know and making choices or not making choices other people are making that are harmful to them. Right. It's almost like I look at the world as like a circus, and like everyone's a clown but doesn't know it, and the ones that know it can fucking take the paint off their face. Right. Once your client takes the paint off of their face and they look at the fucking other people and be like, holy shit, I don't want to be a clown again. Why the fuck would I do that? That is the image, the perspective a lot of people take on. Is that's what I feel like I did, right? When I found out all this stuff about the food industry, the politics behind it, it's like I almost wiped that paint off of my face, and I started looking at everyone like, you guys really, you believe that? It's a joke to me, right? So when you show your clients the same way we see it or I see it, they're not going to take it seriously anymore. They're going to be like, yeah, we don't want to do that. It's like,
And in a way, they can't believe that they used to do that, because it's almost as if the concept of like a lot of these individuals are just coasting by life, right? Consuming not food, but like consuming information that's just either passed down to them from generations, like quick, cheap fixes online that they read, right? Like, again, convenience, all these things in their external environment that they're never really mindful of what they're doing. So again, another thing we really work on with our clients is like mindset and being present and being kind of sort of more aware of their environmental factors, not just like surroundings, but literally like the media they're consuming, the people they hang out with, right? All of that comes down to food, because food is a very big social thing. Like, let's face it, like a lot of our lives revolve around food, food gatherings, making choices about food. Like, how many times a day do you think about food? You're eating every 2-3 hours. It's always a constant thing on your mind, just like an interaction with a person, right? You're driving on the road, you're most likely passing by food places. The radio has a commercial about food. You see on your Instagram, there's a food. So food is everywhere. And when you get a client to kind of sort of be more present and aware of like what they're consuming outside in their environment, again, it has direct implications on their food choices, right? Because if you're in a household where everyone's eating like takeout 3-4 times a day, right? It's very difficult for you to be that one black sheep to be like, well, like what's wrong with what they're doing, until you make them realize what's wrong with what their family's doing, what their friends are doing, what their roommates are doing, right? And then it's the gap that they have to now start acting different in their environment, right? They have to start acting not like the people they live with, not like the people they interact with, not the people they work with, right? Like, we have some clients that are like, well, I bring my lunch to work with me, and the coworkers are like, oh my gosh, like, you think you're better than us because you're bringing your lunch? And it's like, again, that's also another thing you got to really look at. I feel like is a big barrier a lot of our clients maybe have, is like the societal pressures of like just wanting to better themselves, right? Like, I'm sure that like it's in a world where mediocrity and like overall just being lazy is very promoted, right? Being that one fit person in your group is kind of like,
you know what? You
one-off.
fucking should feel better than everyone else. Bring your own lunch when everyone else eats like shit.
Yeah.
And then everyone's gonna make you feel like shit because they know you're better.
Yeah.
So people don't want to feel like that though,
Mm.
right? People are scared of feeling better than others, right? They are
That is
afraid
true.
of yeah, because when you walk into a room and you know you're better than everyone else, people don't like it. You don't get included. You don't get fucking talked to. People stop talking to you just because they know that you're a whole fucking level above them.
You're just different than them, right? It's like it becomes like a us versus them or that person mentality, where if somebody is doing less than you, they're gonna feel very insecure in themselves because you're doing better. So they're gonna want to try to drag you down to their level, right?
You guys both watch basketball. You remember watching Kobe?
Yeah.
How many mans were on fucking Kobe when he was on offense on certain teams? It was like fucking 3-4 on
Triple
one.
team. Yeah.
Why? Because he's better.
Best. Yeah.
Like, when he's on the court, the ones that fucking suck are gonna come up and team up on him. It's the same thing when a person that's very, very good, above and beyond levels, walks into a room with people well beyond him or well below him, sorry, or her. Right there, people are going to get, and people see it on TV. They see it with the NBA stars. They see it with all the sports and stuff like that. It's almost subconsciously ingrained that if you are to be somebody great, you're going to receive hate. You are going to receive criticism. You're going to receive a lot of hardship, and that does not come easy, and people do not want that. So once you change the person's mind about what it means to be great and accepting greatness, then they will become great, because otherwise they're just not fucking ready for it.
Yeah. I think it's intimidating, right? Like all the stuff you said, like it's intimidating, right? It's like people, there's two routes. You can either get like inspired by it or intimidated by it, right? Like some clients, I'm sure, like when you have that conversation, as you ease into it, some might be like, yo, I don't want to live that standard. Like that's a lot of
They get overwhelmed. Yeah.
overwhelmed, right? But some might be like, yo, let's fucking do this. Like, I'm gonna cook every meal, whatever it is. And you can right away pick that, right? Some might take like 6 to 12 months to finally not convert. I don't want to say like converting people, but like tell them like what to wear, like make them critically think, right?
Yes.
You're just making them think, right? Like most people don't take time to think, right? Just like the day goes by, years go by, 5 years go by, and it's just like, and it's not even like, I think you guys touched on this with the whole food thing in the grocery stores. Everything is actually society is set up in a way, right? The society is set up that way so your day is a blur. So you don't get to think and actually stand out. If you think about it, how everything's set up, like I was talking, I don't know, were we talking about this on one of the podcasts? But it's like it was set up where like you go to university, I did accounting, and I'm like I work whatever 9 to 5, and then I'll come home, I'm a little tired, so I'll take a nap, and then maybe I'll go to the gym, or like what, I'm just gonna go for a walk today because I'm tired, and it's already 9 o'clock. It's like F it, I don't feel like making stuff right now, so I'm just gonna buy like Subway or some shit, eat it, and then go to bed. And just repeat. There's literally no, and then it's a weekend now, right? It's already Saturday. You're like, oh, I had a hard week. I worked so hard this week. I'm just gonna chill out this weekend. And fucking 10 years go by, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
shit, now I need a coach,
Chilling for 10 years.
right? So I think like it's beautiful that like as early someone can catch themselves, just think more, critically think, and just become aware, and then like start, getting a coach, or like just becoming making better choices. Hopefully the podcast allows to make better choices, but just doing that in itself is gonna go against what the society actually kind of wants, right? Because not, yeah, it is whack, but that's what the society set up. Even like that perspective you said on the food stuff, where like the fake chicken tastes like normal chicken. That's
Weird.
fucking rowdy.
Why are you
That's so
eating that?
rowdy. Like
Just eat meat then. I don't
I
get
didn't,
it. It's so
I didn't even,
I don't get it.
I didn't even think about it like that. Like I'm like, bro, actually, just eat chicken. If you're like gonna eat something that tastes like chicken, like
Yeah.
just eat the chicken. I get it from like a religious perspective, but like if you're religious and you're like, I'm gonna have fake chicken, like
It's virtue signaling, man. It's like
it's
they need to feel still okay with what they're doing
it's
as
so
long as
funny. So
it's
funny.
really odd. It's like you're doing the bad thing without really doing the bad thing. It's like it's not real chicken. It's
It's so
still
funny.
okay.
You know what? That was another thing, like for me too. I don't know if you want to like even talk. I guess touch on this like very slightly. Like obviously being like coming from a Sikh family, it was a religious thing that like we were vegetarian, we couldn't eat meat
Yeah,
until I found out you can a specific way. Right.
yeah,
So like obviously
Stop.
you're Sikh as well, like you eat meat.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's sometimes like I've had this conversation with specific clients. You know who they are. We won't name them because I don't know
for
if they
sure.
want me.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you know these people, and they're Amritari, like complete vegetarian. And like obviously through education and like you're talking about our religion and how politics kind of influenced vegetarianism in Sikhi and throughout India,
yeah.
through this colonial whatever.
Cannolis taste so
Breads.
good.
Well,
No,
the one the bread canolized fucking Indian. Anyways, so there's a big history of like, the fact that curry is not actually Indian at
Yeah,
all. Like, bro, we never ever cooked
that's
anything with
crazy.
curry. There's no such thing. Cab, you're Tamil, right?
Yeah,
From South India, there's something called curry, right? The Brits came, they found out all these spices, they went back to England, they gave their wives these fucking spices. The wives fucking made up some random ass fucking cookbooks being like, how to cook authentic Indian. You can search these up, but they're on Google. You can still buy these books. They're making these books, they send them back over. The Brits open up these shops in India selling Indians, UK influenced Indian food that is now curry based.
crazy.
Right? So when you really like take a look at what our food is and what our people know as street food, Indian food, a lot of it really isn't. Right. So
Yeah, okay.
again, like education, like
Yeah.
making sure your client knows, like,
Knowing why you're doing what you're doing.
yeah,
That's what it comes down to.
knowing exactly what it is that like you're eating, the history behind that, like the authentic food that India has to offer. A lot of it is South Indian.
Yeah.
North Indian food is heavily British influenced that we have now, right? It's not the same food anymore, right? So yeah, like perspective on the actual food itself for clients to understand. Like a lot of people will come and say, this is my culture food, I can't drop it. But is it really? Like how far back in your culture is it really your food? It's only like since the Brits were there, right? So coming from like a Punjabi background where this is knowledge that I learned as an adult myself, having done the research, it was an easier way for me to have a conversation with other clients to be like, hey, this is really how it is. And so when they took that in, it changed their perspective and they were able to be like, okay, you know what? Being as like, my health kind of sucks right now. I have kids. I need to take care of my health. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of choices. I need to start eating maybe like, let's just start with eggs, right? And then the eggs, they have significant improvements in their health markers. They're getting better omega fats. They've dropped a bunch of the processed, ultra processed meats and just replaced it with just, let's say, eggs, egg whites,
protein sources,
whole protein sources, whole quality food, just by, me doing my due diligence of like researching why I'm doing what I'm doing, explaining to my clients, them changing their perspective on their own, and then them coming to me and asking me, hey, I really thought about this. I think I want to incorporate this and this now, or I want less of this because of what you told me. Right. So again, it comes back to, what what your experience is as a person, what you're going to explain to your clients, and how you're going to change their perspective. Right. Even coming from a Punjabi background, like it'll people will say, yeah, my religious, or a lot of times it's less religious. It's more like, this is my culture food. I need to stick to this. My mom makes this. I need to stick to this, right? But
Yeah.
just having a slight change in perspective can help change that.
Yeah. I think, Kegs, I know you said you have to go, right?
Yeah, I got it.
You guys good for another like 10 minutes? I want to ask another. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Kegs, you can dip if you want. Okay.
Thank you guys for your knowledge.
I
Okay,
can.
thanks.
Yeah. I was gonna I was gonna just touch on it, it sucks. It's whack. Like, you know how like that one individual is like, yo, you know what? Like, I'm running out of time. I got kids, low energy, whatever it is, and I'm like, I'm gonna try some eggs. If someone's watching this, it's like, don't let it get to that point. Don't let it be like one of the last straws you pull, right?
Yeah.
Educate yourself, and like that's the beauty that you guys, and it also helps like you've experienced it, and that's one of the best educators. Like I don't, Dasha, you mentioned it too. People have to go through it and then realize, and I'm like, oh shit, I
Yeah.
gotta learn something, or like I had to do something differently. Um, but like education seems to be the pillar, right? It's like learn, and then
Yeah.
don't make your body the fucking experiment for like
That's
20
the thing.
years, and then go to the so like this is what I was gonna ask earlier. What can be some things people can start observing or looking at? Maybe it's a blood test, right? Maybe in a general sense of like, say they've been having a bunch of processed food, they've been following ultra processed diets, whatever it is, and they might not even know they actually internally feeling bad, right? Because externally they're like, "Yo, I feel pretty blessed." What can be some general things they can start observing and looking at to be like, okay, yo, I really got to improve this, maybe improve that. Maybe like, I know it's a specific question, but as general as you can make it. Yeah.
Generally speaking, if this is an individual that says, oh, I feel fine, everything's fine, I have no issues, it's going to be kind of difficult to tell them what to look out for if they're not in that body awareness state yet, right?
Okay.
Meaning they haven't felt worse yet. So they haven't noticed their recovery is slowing down. They haven't noticed they're getting more frequent constipation. They haven't noticed that they're getting more lethargic throughout the day for no reason. So until they start to feel literal small changes in their body, the body awareness concept is out. Like it's very difficult to even get a person to realize what feeling like shit is until they actually feel it. Unfortunately, right? We can't make something happen that doesn't exist yet. But what they can do is, if they hear this podcast or if they hear the information about the kinds of food choices they're doing, start being a little bit more aware, just more aware of what's in your food. Meaning, like, instead of going, well, I need a can of beans, I need a carton of milk, I need a whatever, and just grabbing stuff off the shelf or going based off of the price because it's the cheapest thing on sale, start actually turning that package around and reading what the fuck's in your food. Just start with that. See if you can pronounce any of the things in your food. If you're like literally reading Harry Potter spells when you're pronouncing your food, that's not food. Put it back. Okay, like I'm serious. If you're buying a almond milk, for example, if you're vegetarian, you're buying an almond milk, right? There are almond milks out there that are literally just almonds, a little bit of like a starch in there, maybe some sugar, like cane sugar or whatever they use to sweeten it, and most likely just like a little bit of sodium. Like 4 or 5 things max, right? Again, because it has to be shelf stable, understandable. Certain things are not going to kill you. They're actually decent for you. Versus you go to the soy milk or the almond milk that's not refrigerated, that's in the actual aisles, and there's like 15 ingredients. So just compare the two. One is $5.99, the other one's $1.99. Well, okay, I wonder why. Just looking at that alone should make the person be like, good to know, okay, and then they can make a decision, right? So starting off with just reading your ingredients or finding an ingredient on there that you've never heard of before and researching it. What does it do? Well, what can be the bad part about it? What's the good part about it, right? So that's usually what I tell like our clients is number one is just start turning the label around. Start looking at things or start comparing macronutrient profiles. If there's two of the same thing, two of the same yogurt, one might have less sugar than the other. One might have less fat than the other. Maybe it's the same amount of protein. Let's say you need 13 grams of protein from your Greek yogurt. One has 22 carbs, one has 2 carbs or 9 carbs because of lactose, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Go with the 9 carb option one, right?
Okay.
It's just learning about what is in your food. That's the first thing to do. Just learn. Learn about what's in your food, learn about what you're putting in your body. And then start making little changes. So meaning opting for the better option. That's when the body awareness starts to come into play because I guarantee the person will start to feel better. And that's what Kags was saying is they won't know what better is until they start to feel it. That is how you get them to start feeling better. And then they realize the shitty state they were in eating like that. Right. So it's kind of like you're making them do it themselves just by getting them to start doing simple things like reading food ingredients, making a little bit of a better choice, maybe paying a little bit more, like $1 or 2 more, but they start feeling better. Right.
Yeah.
To me, that's the best way to do it. And we've done it with our clients and it works because they did not realize, they're like, why is it that when I buy this Greek yogurt, I'm bloated, but when I buy this one, I'm not? I'm like, well, what's in the Greek yogurt? Aha, ta-da, like there you go.
Even with that, like you're doing like a food log or something.
Yeah.
You can just like a notebook, like write down what you ate, how you felt after, how long after you take a shit. You know, some simple stuff like that.
Simple stuff.
I think if you try to track things, you start to see patterns, and then you start to feel. Right. So there's obviously like there's so many different ways. Like you can people can try all sorts of things to kind of just see how they feel. Yeah. Right. So that's really what I'm down to.
And then if someone's on the other side, obviously, hopefully, like they reach out for help. But say like they're on the other side where they don't feel good, because a lot of people still don't reach out for help, right? They're like, oh, I'm too far gone per se. Like it is what it is. This is how I am. This is how I live. And like whatever the pain is, they're just like familiar to them. Like I'm comfortable in this, right? But they're at that point. They've been eating shitty food, ultra processed, whatever it is. But they're listening to the podcast. They're like, oh, I should probably make a change. It'd probably make me feel better, right? For them, the obvious signs, I guess, body awareness wise, what would they be if you guys had to put it like in a summary? Like, would it be like low energy, bloating? Like, what would be the some signs that they're having too much processed foods?
Because I was there, right? I will tell you. So one of the biggest, I'll tell you a bunch of the signs. So if you have like a bunch of these, like you need help, dog. You wake up, feel it. Okay, first of all, it's just hard to wake up. Okay. Right. Once you wake up, you have very low energy. It takes you a while to kind of like get going. Right. Even your cups of coffee don't help and whatever. And then also your eye boogers. Right. Like ged. If you wake up with a lot of ged or like around your nose as well, and a lot of like earwax to this,
any kind of mucus,
mucusy stuff. That's big. And when I was vegetarian, like my eyes would stay fucking shut. Like it was crusted over. That's I think one of the biggest signs of like inflammation and like something's going wrong in your body. Then throughout the day, things like you take a look at the mirror when you wake up. How's your skin looking? Does it look bright? Does it look refreshed? How are the bags under your eyes? And like the complexion of your skin, and like, do you look alive? Yeah. Right. Then going out through the day, like your digestion, how quickly do you digest? How many times do you go to the bathroom? How is going to the bathroom? And how do your energy levels maintain throughout the day after meals? Does it dip down during certain parts of the day? Like these are all things, again, you can write down in a logbook or something like that. Jot it down on your phone. And then like coming in towards the evening, how are you winding down? Are you able to like kind of relax and fall asleep, or do you carry anxiety and like stress throughout the day? Right? How do your muscles and body feel going out through the day towards the end of the day? Right? Do you feel like your joints hurt? Do you feel like no, I fucking tui gode kunia gardan fucking dukhdiya sir dukhdaya? Is your head hurting? How is your eyesight throughout the day? Do you get blurry eyes? All of these things are signs that something's going on in your body, right? A lot of them can be coming from one thing, some of them a couple things. And then, just falling asleep as well. Like how quickly, how easily do you fall asleep? And then your sleep as well. If you have something to track your sleep, cool. But
Yeah.
like generally, you can see if you slept well, just like how you woke up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
You'll know, like, I slept good, I feel great. I
Yeah.
didn't sleep that good, I feel like shit,
Yeah.
right? Then throughout the week, like kind of take a survey to like how many of those days you wake up actually feeling good, right?
Yeah.
If it's like you only woke up feeling like shit like 1 or 2 days out of the week, fine, okay,
Yeah.
shit happens. You're constantly waking up feeling like shit, going through your day feeling like shit, always having to drink coffee to up your energy, and like, you know, or pharmaceuticals to like boost your mood and blah 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 blah, and you're on all these sorts of supplements to make sure to cover all these deficiencies that your doctor has said that you have from blood work that you've done. These are signs.
Okay.
Right? Do you have onto it?
No, that's like, it's literally what we touched on last podcast, right, Rounit? Is
Yeah.
like the hierarchy that I use with my clients to assess like their overall vitality, and I guess when it comes to digestion and bloating, but it's an all-encompassing thing, right? It's a whole system. So
Yeah.
just overall, like I said, my big one is cognitive performance.
Okay.
Is when I'm talking to individual, how sharp are their sentences? Are they stuttering? Are they like able to concentrate? Are they able to remember what I said and repeat it back to me, for example, right? Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
do that with my clients. I'm talking to them and I'll be like, do you understand? And I'll be like, okay, what did I just say? And if they're not there, they're like, I'm like, okay. I'm like, we got like, you're doing something wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not to say that it's like a factor, but
Yeah.
again, when you're an athlete, you're a precise athlete, the cognitive abilities of the person should be a little bit more there. So do you have brain fog? Are you driving and zone out and forget how did you get from point A to point B? That's a big one. I call it zombie driving. People telling me that, like, Daria, I don't even remember how I sat behind the wheel. I'm just on the highway and I'm like, wait, how did I get here?
Yeah.
That's a problem. Like there's something not right,
I
right?
know.
So
Yeah.
that's a big one for me, is cognitive performance. And again, even with our own clients, we've seen like the nights that they don't sleep, because they have like a consistent 7-day schedule, right? Good day, good day, good day, good day. Message us, guys, my lift was shit today. Okay, well, let's take a look. What happened? Did you eat something different? Did you drink enough water? Did you get enough salt? Yes, yes, yes. Oh, but I didn't sleep good. I'm like, there you go. That's what's wrong, right? So
Yeah.
little things like that, knowing what's going on with the body is a big like determining factor of when to seek help or when to change something in
Yeah.
the body, right?
Yeah. The reason I asked this, like most people know, man. Like you know, like we don't feel good.
They do.
You
They
know,
just
ignore it.
because they don't,
Ignore it, right? So please don't ignore it. If you feel certain things, like you mentioned a bunch of them, but you know when you don't feel good. And like if you just reverse engineer, like you just said it, like we don't even have to go into weeds of it, but like food, sleep, water, salt, like just look
very
at the
basic
pillars,
stuff.
right? And we talked on the last podcast. So I want to do a quick little I'm gonna ask you 3 quick questions, just to summarize some things. I know we didn't get to go into supplements. This we might have to do another one for that. But to summarize, if you want to get jacked as a vegetarian, right? Let's go with food choices. If you're not gonna take the route of eggs and all that stuff, what are like maybe top 5 foods that as a vegetarian you can still kind of get away with, or like maybe top 5 combinations, to get the full amino acid profile besides dairy? Because I know some people are gonna be like, I'm lactose, I can't have dairy, I'm lactose, whatever it is.
Yep.
What would, yeah, the top 5 veggie?
Okay, in my opinion, fermented soy and like whole source soy, so soy that's not refined, right? So if you can get direct soy from like Japan or China, like really good quality soy,
Okay.
it's great. Again, we can talk about the next podcast, like the whole like estrogens and stuff, but in
Yeah.
general, if you can get like good source edamame, right? Beans and grains, beans and rice, right? Lentils and rice is perfect. You can do nuts and seeds and a grain as well.
Nice.
You can do, again, the combination of legumes, nuts, wheat, like seeds, right? Specific seeds. Not so much chia seeds, because again, it's kind of like a fiber. It doesn't really give you much nutritional density unless you're looking for like a bulk for your colon. You don't need it, but
Yeah.
definitely we'll go the route of fermented soy. Again, dairy is optimal, but if that's not an option, don't worry about it. Nuts and cold pressed nuts or whole nuts, nut butters. There is actually a very wide variety of nuts and like seeds out there. If people just educate themselves as to like, there's so many, and some of them are lower in fat, lower in carbs, and have a decent amount of protein in them, right? So
Okay.
just do your research to kind of different nuts, beans, legumes, excellent. And then again, make sure you know how to cook those beans and legumes. That's another big one, right? Making sure
Okay.
you know how to use those actually properly. And then what did I miss? Grains. Again, there's different kinds of grains. You can go get bulgur. You can get buckwheat. You can get in Ethiopia they use teff. Teff is crazy. Teff is so nutrient dense and so high in protein and carbs. It's like
Jeez.
amazing. Look at ethnic grains. That's like there's a whole world of those things from Italy, Portugal. Portuguese people actually do a really cool dish with with a grain, and they're called lupini beans. Like they're like these little flat beans,
Oh,
and you can even get them in cans. They're preserved in like olive oil in cans. They're
Okay.
really good, high in protein.
Okay.
But yeah, that would definitely be my suggestion, right? Is get creative with the resources you have. So the beans,
Sick.
nuts, grains, dairy. Look a lot into Asian cultures because they use a lot of different mushrooms, funguses as well that have protein. You
Okay.
can add some of that in there too. So yeah, definitely get very diverse with your sources, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So no fake chicken.
no, don't do it.
Make your
Not
own
that
then.
much.
Take the soybeans and chomp them at home and spice them, and then
Yeah.
make it your
Do
own. Don't buy it in the store.
this this is a really specific question, but do you have anything top of mind, the Japanese soy brand? Because that's a really good thing. A lot of people ask, right? Hey, bro,
Oh
it's
my
my.
gosh. I
I
don't
know
have it
it's
off the top of my
okay.
head.
That's
I
fine.
can, you know what I can do is like if you're gonna do like a little description below, I can send you some links to some places.
Sick. That'd be cool.
If anybody ever messages you directly, you can always like shoot
Yeah.
me up. I gotta look
That'd
into
be.
some of them, but I remember
That's
there's
fine.
one called Yukani or Yukugani.
I
It's at
got you.
Whole
Oh,
Foods. It's like it's vacuum sealed.
yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, sick. Okay, and then I was gonna ask. I guess that'll be the next podcast topic, maybe. One of them was the soy and estrogen levels, right? So is that actual like is that a myth or did that actually happen?
Again, the isoflavones in the soy, they do trigger. Again, this is a big argument I've had with people, and there's science supporting both. So don't shoot the messenger. But because the soy estrogen isn't bioidentical to our estrogen, meaning it's not the same estrogen, right? True, but it still binds to the estrogen receptors in the body, meaning it'll still influence hormones. There was a study done on females who ate X amount of soy per day, and they studied them over the course of 3 years to see if it had an effect on their menstruation. It had significant effect on the length of the menstruation and the severity of the menstruation.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to argue and say that soy does not have an effect on estrogen, it does, right? There's a very strong correlation. Now, soy in its purest form, and again, we'll talk about this next time, but the soy that I'm referring to is the one that's been ultra processed, that's been made for mass production, full of pesticides, full of GMO. When you genetically modify isoflavonoids, they have a weird interaction in the body. Like you're taking a specific little mechanism in soy and you're altering it. And you're kind of just like throwing it in the dark, being like, well, let's see what happens, right? Not enough long-term studies to see that in people. They don't really know, but we can tell based off of the amount of men's testosterone levels that are dropping and estrogen levels that are rising with the amount of fake meat being consumed, there is a very high correlation with estrogenic effects of soy.
Don't be a soy boy.
Yes. So long answer short is there is an effect of soy and estrogen. So be very careful. That's why I'm saying when you're eating soy, don't make it your main source of protein. Monitor how you feel when you eat it. Like for guys, if you're starting to get tender breasts, like literally, that's not a good sign. If your like nipple area is getting tender, your hormones are off, right? With women, if you're getting more acne and your periods are heavier and you're bloating more around your period, so you develop PMDD. It's almost like a very severe neurological, physiological disorder of premenstruation symptoms in girls that gets much higher with high estrogen levels and high soy consumption. So be very mindful when eating soy. That's a whole other thing of its own, but just be very cautious with that.
But the Japanese fermented soy, it's kind of okay.
It is because again, fermenting it has a different mechanism of action in the body. It's a little different. It's the same thing as like if you were to take beans, for example, eat them just after boiling them versus soaking them overnight, washing them, pressure cooking them, and then eating them, right? It's going to have a different effect in the body. And it's going to digest different, right? So it's the same thing with soy. When you alter it for one way, it'll affect it negatively. The other way, it'll actually bring out the benefits of it and reduce the bad things. Right? So,
awesome. Okay, so you can get jacked as a vegetarian still. There's the hope isn't lost, right?
I personally think that vegetarianism is a great modality to use if you're trying to, again, not necessarily change your lifestyle, but maybe do a little bit of a deload from a specific food group. If you're somebody who did carnivore, let's say, for like years, and now you're like, oh, fuck that shit, I'm tired of meat, I want to eat no meat. And you still got protein, do that, right? Or if you're in my opinion, a high endurance athlete that requires, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of like output, you probably get away with, you know, getting stronger, bigger
Yo.
on
Also,
vegetarian.
yo, nobody ever said you can't be a vegetarian and take steroids, bro. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's
Just fucking be vegetarian, take a bunch of juice.
yeah.
Fucking be
You'll
as
be
jacked
fine
as you
either
want,
way,
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of vegetarians who do that.
Mhm.
They promote the vegetarianism through the juiciness.
Nice.
Well, it's the veggie juice.
We'll talk about that next podcast. Expose all of them. Huh?
I was okay. I wasn't one of them because I would just tell people I was on juice.
No, why not? We'll expose the other ones. But okay, that's a good end. I know we've been already for 90 minutes, which is sick. Any last words for the podcast, not in real life? But.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you can get pretty like jacked being vegetarian.
Yeah.
But like when we're talking jacked guys, like, not everyone wants to be a pro bodybuilder.
100%.
Right? Sometimes you want to look like a professional footballer, soccer player, footballer. You want to look like a professional athlete. Absolutely. You do not need to be a mass monster for that. You don't need to be extremely lean. On this podcast, we're talking about the extremes for bodybuilding. Right? We're not talking about just average athletic endeavors of athletic physiques. I think most definitely everyone can get an athletic physique being a vegetarian if you do it the smart way. Right? So this isn't to hate or anything against vegetarianism. I was a vegetarian myself. We have vegetarian clients ourselves, and we're not here to convince anyone that one is better than the other. We're just saying that the whole industry, the food industry itself, is something that you have to be careful about and kind of be mindful about. Whether you eat meat or you're vegetarian, this applies to both people. Stop eating fucking processed foods. Learn about what your food is, where it's coming from, what the companies stand for behind your food products. Make better decisions for yourselves, your children, and keep yourselves in better health.
Yeah, that's a solid end.
Yeah.
Bless. Anything else? Good?
Yeah, again, when it comes to like just diet selection, like vegetarian eat or whatever, just know why you're doing it. That's all I'm gonna say is, why are you this diet? What are you getting from it? What is it bringing you, right? Or are you just doing this because of pressure or virtue signaling? Just know why you're doing something at the end of the day, right? If it's good for you, a healthier route, then do it. If not, then don't. It's as simple as that. It's gotta be
just think.
for everyone.
Yeah, just think, right? Yeah. That's the reason for the podcast. Just think. Honestly, it's like I relate this to Coach Baxter. Like I think we're talking about analogies, right? So he's like, yo, just gain. The reason everyone should just gain all shoulder range of motion. Maybe you spend all your lifting career like in this motion, but if you have all the room, right? At least you have flexibility and you know you can get into different places. So you mitigate long-term shoulder stuff, right? So same thing with this. It's like it's good to know everything, even if you're not an extreme bodybuilder. Like, why would you not want to know stuff? And then if you can apply it to your daily life, yeah, why not, right? So, okay. Bless. Power to vegetarians. I don't know.
Sick podcast.